Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1064, written by Inner Ad 5786. The Unexplained Portal in My Backyard. When I was a kid in the 1970s, I lived out in the boonies between Cleveland and Akron, Ohio. We had a large house sitting on several acres of land, most of it being heavily wooded. There was a large hill in the front yard, sloping downward away from the front of the house. One late November, we had enough snow so that my brother and I could go sledding. I hopped onto my trusty flexible flyer runner sled and bolted down the hill. My brother was still at the top of the hill as I descended. After I came to a complete stop, I began to dig around for a mitten that fell off. I didn't dig far until I saw a light peeking out from the ground, shining upward at me. I cleared away some more snow and I couldn't believe what I saw. I could see daylight? Not only that, but I could see about 50 feet down and make out a couple houses and a street, all through an 8-inch hole that I dug in my front yard. There was apparently a whole neighborhood that I could see through this hole, all below me through this tiny passage. This wasn't an area of the country with any mountains, cliffs, or overhangs. No, this was a world that was somehow visible in a place that should have been invisible, which was within 50 feet of dirt and rock, covered in snow. My brother then descends down the hill on his sled as I'm sitting there stunned. I turned away for an instant to look at him, then looked back. The world I'd discovered was now gone. I could now only see dormant grass underneath the snow that I had previously cleared away. The next day I sledded down the hill again and looked in the same place for the mystery neighborhood, but I never saw it again. The only person I ever told is my wife, and it was many years later. She of course looked at me like I was nuts, and who could blame her? Case notes are file 1064, The Unexplained Portal in My Backyard. So I don't think you're nuts, although this is one of the more particular glitches I've seen. We all know about multiversal peering, but all the universes out there run concurrent to us, and they're within the same space-time coordinates. So that means that if you look into a different universe, it might be slightly different, but it's along the same timeline. So if somehow you're looking through the membrane into a parallel world, just like digging out snow somehow digging out the membrane, then you're seeing into a parallel world, you'd still just be seeing dirt because you're looking at the same space-time coordinates. The orientation would be the same, the vector would be the same as well. Unless somehow the planet itself shifted ever so slightly downward relative to the universe, even it doesn't matter in what timeline you're in, the gravity should function the same way. Well, there are theories actually that maybe physics, the laws of physics, differ slightly between parallel universes too. That's kinda interesting, isn't it? Case file number 1065, written by mollyrhi. The Mystery of the Old Pink Lady. Was in Savannah, Georgia, visiting my brother who is stationed there. I was with my friend and my mom, and we were going to this allegedly haunted restaurant called The Old Pink House. Well, my mom tends to mix up words a lot, and told me the restaurant was called The Old Pink Lady. So when we were driving there, I put The Old Pink Lady in the GPS and we followed it. We were almost at our destination, and all three of us thought it was a pretty weird location. It had brought us to this pretty ghetto neighborhood with no businesses or restaurants in sight. Then Siri tells us that we have arrived at our destination, which was just this house in the middle of this neighborhood. No street sign or anything with the word pink in it at all. Suddenly my friend goes, "Holy fluck, look," and pointed to our destination. I crap you not. Sitting on the porch of this house was an old woman in bright pink robe. It was incredibly weird, and we were so confused because nothing in our vicinity had the word pink or lady. So my mom calls my sister-in-law, who tells us the restaurant was called The Old Pink House and not The Old Pink Lady, and my mom laughs at her mistake, and we reroute to go to the restaurant. It was probably the weirdest coincidence ever, and made me and my friend feel like we were being watched or something. Super odd. My mom continued to joke that maybe she's known as the Old Pink Lady. Case file number 1065, The Mystery of the Old Pink Lady. The only thing I can think that would explain this ordinarily is other people over the years also inputted Old Pink Lady by mistake in their GPS, and the map app that they used took them to that house every time for some reason. Maybe just because it has no information, it inputs a random house, but the same random house for everyone. So as a practical joke, the lady that lives there decides to prank people by dressing up in pink and sitting on the porch. The Old Pink Lady. Just to mess with people that come by. It is rather far-fetched, but outside of that, I don't know what would cause this. Some kind of simulation prank? A higher level prank indeed. Bonus file, written by Sasha, 1695. Sinister Gray Fox, my experience in the deep woods. Came here hoping anyone could share similar experiences or give insight. I took a trip to stay in a cabin in the middle of the woods high up in the mountains of the city of Ranger, Georgia, USA. This neighborhood was 30 minutes up in the mountains away from civilization, and even the cabins were spread far apart. The front deck of the cabin was completely exposed to the woods, so I acknowledged that any animals could stroll along if they pleased. But I stayed there for about a week, and me and my boyfriend sat outside on the front deck every night, very late, and at no point felt in danger. It was peaceful with fireflies out and sounds of crickets every night. Until the fifth night. It was eerily dark too. The moon was covered heavily. It was about midnight, and all of a sudden I didn't feel peace like I did those other nights. The forest went completely quiet, and I felt a horrible sense of dread. I genuinely feared for my life. I sat there in my chair, looking out into the dark forest, trying to rationalize and calm myself down that it was my mind playing tricks. But all of a sudden my boyfriend said out loud that he felt unsafe too. I told him I felt the same, and we ran inside. The cabin has 3 floors, and we were able to climb out the window and sit on the roof because we still wanted to be outside and relax. Didn't matter how high up I was, I felt something truly evil and stayed inside. The only other time I felt something so evil or like someone was watching was when I had a few paranormal experiences at a haunted house. Georgia doesn't really get mountain lions, maybe a bear, but it didn't feel that way at all. Holy crap, I just remembered something about that night. I remember hearing a blood-curdling scream, and we pulled out a flashlight. Turns out it was a gray fox, and they make scary screaming sounds. The weird part was that the fox was running and had its ears and tail down. This was in June, and I just read that foxes scream like that when it's mating season, or if they're in danger. Their mating season is winter and spring, so it was definitely afraid of something. Case notes for the bonus file. A sinister gray fox, my experience in the deep woods. So this made me instantly think about the story where someone goes on vacation to a small town, in an isolated house surrounded by forests too. I forgot the area, maybe it was Michigan. Anyways, they too felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Like a blanket of evil was cast over the town. That ended as soon as they left, the emotion just vanished like a weight taken off of them. I think there are places in the world where evil congregates. It seems to be natural order of nature that power accumulates, good and bad. And now time for the quote of the day. It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. Tyler Durden. Fight Club, classic movie. Slightly misunderstood. I think the entire thing was playing in his mind. Nothing of that was really happening. It's a defense mechanism. And I think the story is meant not as like this grand scream against the system, but more about longing for something more. And I think we all feel that way, right? It's perfectly natural. You can find it, you just have to find yourself, and that's the real key. Maybe you do want to be a boxer or a fighter. I don't know. Give it a shot. Join a gym and try it out. Maybe I will. Like the video, subscribe. Kinetic Symphony signing off.